The day Connor disappeared started like any other summer day, hot, sticky, full of the buzzing sound of cicadas. He was playing hide-and-seek with his younger sister, Margaret. They loved the woods behind their house. Those woods stretched for miles. They eventually led, some said, to the old, forgotten grounds of Camp Reflect, a place whispered about, a place best left alone. Connor, always brave, always daring, ran deeper into the trees. He called out, "You'll never find me, Maggie." His laughter echoed, then silence. A silence too deep, too sudden. Margaret, only 6 years old, waited. She counted to 100, slowly, then she started looking. She called his name. "Connor, Connor, I give up." Her small voice trembled, the sun began to dip. Long shadows stretched like grasping fingers. She found nothing. Only the trees, only the coming dark. She ran home, crying. Her parents searched. The police searched. Neighbors fanned out with flashlights. They found no trace, no sign. It was as if Connor had simply vanished, evaporated into the humid air of that late afternoon. Margaret survived. But she was never quite the same. She remembered the game. She remembered Connor's taunting laugh. She remembered the sudden, awful stillness that fell over the woods. Sometimes late at night, she would wake up screaming. She dreamt of mirrors, endless shining mirrors. And in those mirrors, she saw a boy who looked like Connor, but his eyes were empty, cold. He would just stand there, watching her, never speaking, never moving, just watching. Her parents told her it was just a bad dream, but Margaret knew. She knew it was more. Years passed. Connor became a local legend. The boy who walked into the woods and never came out. A ghost story told to keep children close to home. But for Margaret, he was real. A constant, aching void. The woods behind their house remained a place of dread, a place she avoided. The memory of that day, that silence, clung to her like a shroud. She knew deep down that something terrible had happened, something beyond ordinary understanding, something connected to the whispers, connected to the forgotten name of Camp Reflect, and the mirrors, always the mirrors. The name Ronald Pierce surfaced slowly, like a body rising from a murky lake, decades old, almost forgotten. He was the founder of Camp Reflect, a visionary, some had called him, a philanthropist, others claimed, but old records, unearthed from dusty archives, painted a different picture, a darker picture. Pierce wasn't interested in summer games, or campfire songs. He was interested in the mind, specifically the minds of children. He believed they were pliable, malleable. He had theories. Strange theories about identity, about reflection. Pierce had a method. It was meticulous, sinister. He sought out children who were perhaps a little lost, a little lonely. He offered them a place, a sanctuary he called it, Camp Reflect. It looked idyllic, cabins nestled by a lake, a sprawling main lodge. But beneath the surface, something else was at work. Pierce wasn't building a camp. He was building a laboratory, a place to test his chilling ideas. He documented everything. His notes were filled with cold, detached observations about how to separate a child from their sense of self. His methods were subtle at first. Games that confused. Stories that unsettled. He observed their reactions to specific stimuli, especially mirrors. Pierce had an obsession with mirrors. He believed they were more than just reflective surfaces. He thought they could be gateways, or prisons. He wrote about the other self, the one that lives in the glass, the one that watches. He wanted to understand it, to control it, maybe even to swap it. The children were his subjects, unwitting participants in his monstrous experiment. The full extent of Pierce's work remained hidden for years, buried with him, or so people thought. Camp Reflect closed down abruptly. Whispers of strange occurrences, of children changed, of some who never left. But the official story was mundane. Lack of funding, a dying enterprise. No one dug too deep. No one wanted to look too closely at Ronald Pierce, or at the shadows he had cultivated in that quiet, remote place. Deep within the main lodge of Camp Reflect, Pierce had constructed his masterpieces, the mirror rooms. These were not ordinary rooms with a looking glass on the wall. Oh no, these were chambers of pure reflection. Every wall, the ceiling, even the floor was a flawless mirror. Stepping inside was like stepping into an infinity of oneself. Countless images staring back, each one a perfect copy, or so it seemed at first. The effect was disorienting, maddening. Children were brought here, left alone, for hours. The purpose was conditioning, to break down their sense of a single, stable identity, to make them question who they were, which reflection was the real one. Were they the person, or just another image in the glass? Above the entrance to each mirror room, a small brass plaque was fixed. It bore a simple, chilling motto: remember or become. Remember who you are. Cling to your memories, yourself, or become something else. Become one of them, the reflections, the empty ones. The motto was more than a warning. It was a core principle of Pierce's project. He believed that if a child's original identity could be sufficiently fragmented, sufficiently weakened, then the self in the mirror, the other, could gain dominance. Could perhaps even emerge. The mirror rooms were the crucible for this transformation. The constant, overwhelming presence of their own image, multiplied endlessly, was designed to wear them down, to make them forget, to make them vulnerable to becoming. The children who endured the mirror rooms were never the same. Some became withdrawn, silent. Their eyes held a distant, haunted look. Others became erratic, aggressive, as if fighting an unseen enemy within themselves. Pierce documented these changes with cold, scientific precision. He saw it as progress, proof of his theories. He didn't see the terror, the shattered minds. He only saw the reflections, and the slow, horrifying process of them beginning to act. Just a little, independently. A flicker of a smile when the child was not smiling. A turn of the head, a fraction too slow, or too fast. It wasn't just the psychological torment of the mirror rooms. Pierce had theorized about a catalyst, something to accelerate the fracturing of identity. He called it, in his cryptic notes, the reflective virus. Not a biological agent in the traditional sense, not something you could see under a microscope. It was more insidious, a sickness of the soul perhaps, spread not by coughs or sneezes but through prolonged exposure. To the mirrors, to the process, to the fear. This virus worked by attacking the very concept of self. It eroded the boundaries between the person and their reflection. Those afflicted began to feel a strange duality. They would see their reflection move when they were still, hear it whisper when they were silent. The mirror image was no longer a passive copy, it was gaining autonomy. A subtle defiance at first, a blink out of sync, a smile that didn't quite match. Then, more overt divergences. The reflection might frown while the person smiled, it might look away. The virus, as Pierce conceived it, made the host susceptible. It made them doubt their own senses, their own reality. Who was real? The person standing before the glass? Or the entity looking back? The mirrors themselves seemed to become carriers, imbued with the lingering psychic residue of those who had been broken. Each new child exposed to the specialized mirrors in Pierce's rooms risked infection, a slow descent into a state where their own identity became fragile, permeable, ready to be overridden. The spread was contained within Camp Reflect, for a time. But Pierce dreamed bigger. He imagined a world where identity was fluid, where the others could emerge more freely. His notes hinted at methods of wider dissemination, but the camp closed before those plans could mature, or so it was believed. The virus, however, was patient. It lingered in the abandoned mirrors, in the decaying structures, waiting for new eyes, new minds, new souls to infect, and to fracture. Section 5, Echoes in the Mind, Lessons in Forgetting. The conditioning lessons were relentless. They were woven into every aspect of life at Camp Reflect. Beyond the terror of the mirror rooms, Pierce and his select staff, individuals as cold and detached as he was, employed a range of techniques. These were designed to chip away at the children's pasts, to make their memories seem distant, unreliable, like dreams half remembered upon waking. The goal was to create a blank slate, a vessel ready to be filled, or to be swapped. Lessons involved repetition, chanting phrases that blurred meaning, stories with characters who lost their names, their histories, visual exercises that confused perception. They were told that their reflections were their true friends, their confidants, the ones who truly understood them. Slowly, insidiously, the children were taught to distrust their own thoughts, their own feelings. If a memory surfaced, a memory of home, of family, it was to be dismissed. That was the old you, the instructors would say. The reflection is the new you, the better you. The effects were profound. Children began to refer to themselves in the third person. They hesitated when asked their names. Their drawings became strange, filled with mirror images, with figures that were half one thing, half another. They lost the spark of individuality. Their laughter became hollow, their play, mechanical. They were becoming echoes, faint copies of who they once were, and all the while their reflections seemed to grow stronger, sharper, more present, more real. Pierce believed that memory was the anchor of self. Sever that anchor and the self would drift. It would become untethered, vulnerable. The conditioning lessons were the daily, patient snipping of those anchor lines. Remember or become. If you could not remember who you were, truly, deeply remember, then the path to becoming was wide open. Becoming what the mirror wanted you to be, becoming the reflection, a perfect, empty vessel, waiting for a new occupant, or for the old one to simply fade away into nothingness. Section 6. A familiar face in the crowd, the return of Eli Danner. Years after Camp Reflect had faded into a dark local legend, Linda Graham was shopping. A mundane Tuesday afternoon, the mall was busy, people hurried past, laden with bags, lost in their own worlds. Linda was looking for a birthday gift for her niece. Then she saw him, across the crowded food court. A young man, maybe early 20s. He was wiping down a table, dressed in the uniform of a fast food restaurant. But it wasn't his job that caught her eye. It was his face, his eyes. She stopped. Her heart pounded. It couldn't be. Eli Danner. He had been one of the children, one of the lost ones from the Whispers, from the fragmented stories her parents used to tell about Camp Reflect. He had vanished, decades ago, presumed dead by most, or simply gone, like Connor. Yet here he was, looking not a day older than when he supposedly disappeared. That was impossible, utterly impossible. But the resemblance was uncanny, the same dark hair, the same peculiar birthmark just below his left eye. Linda approached him slowly, her breath caught in her throat. "Eli?" she whispered. The young man looked up. His eyes were vacant for a moment, then a flicker. Recognition or something else? He offered a small, polite smile. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Linda stammered, apologized, said he reminded her of someone she used to know. He just nodded, turned back to wiping the table, as if she wasn't there, as if she was a ghost. She watched him for a long time. He moved with a strange precision, an economy of motion that was almost unnatural. He never made eye contact with anyone for more than a second. He looked young, impossibly young, but there was something ancient in his gaze when he did look up, something cold. Linda left the mall shaken, troubled. Eli Danner, back from the dead, or something far more disturbing? The encounter gnawed at her, a forgotten horror stirring, a reflection from the past, made real. Section 7. The Digital Ghost, a glimpse into unspeakable horrors. The laptop was old, found in a box of discarded items during a clear-out of a storage unit. A unit once rented under a false name, a name that, with some digging, traced back to an associate of Ronald Pierce. No one expected much. Old tech, probably useless. Then, a curious technician managed to power it up. Most of the files were corrupted, nonsense data, but one video file. Just one. It was playable. What it contained was short, grainy, and utterly horrifying. Proof of the unthinkable. The video showed a mirror room. The quality was poor, the lighting dim. A small child sat on a chair in the center, facing away from the camera, facing the mirrored wall. For several minutes nothing happened, just the child, sitting still. Then the reflection in the mirror opposite the camera. It slowly turned its head. The child did not move, not an inch. The reflection looked directly at the hidden camera, and it smiled. A wide, knowing, terrible smile. The child remained facing away, motionless. The technician who found it felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He watched it again, and again. There was no trickery, no editing he could detect. The reflection was acting independently. Its movements were fluid, intentional. The smile was the worst part. It wasn't a child's smile, it was ancient, predatory. The video cut off abruptly, but the image was seared into his mind. He knew this was something more than an old home movie. This was evidence. Evidence of Pierce's madness. Evidence of the true nature of the Mirror Project. The discovery of the laptop video sent ripples through certain circles. Quiet, concerned circles. It confirmed the darkest rumors about Camp Reflect. It gave credence to the fragmented testimonies of the few who remembered. The idea of reflections gaining independence, of children being replaced. It was no longer just a wild theory. It was a recorded reality. The digital ghost on that old laptop whispered a terrible truth. The mirrors were not just reflecting, they were taking, they were becoming, and they were smiling. Section 8. The Crimson Tide. Public panic and red sweaters. The story began to leak, first as whispers, then as hushed articles on obscure internet forums. The video, the old camp, the missing children, and then the sightings started, small at first, easily dismissed. Someone thought they saw a child in a distinctive red sweater peeking from an alleyway, gone when they looked again. Then another sighting, miles away, same description, red sweater, pale face, dark watchful eyes, always just out of reach, always vanishing. Panic is a contagion. It spread faster than any virus. The image of the child in the red sweater became a symbol of the lost, of the taken. People started seeing them everywhere, in the reflections of shop windows, darting across dimly lit streets, standing silently in playgrounds after dark. Were they real? Were they ghosts? Or were they something else, something new? The media picked up on it. The children in red, they called them. Fear became a constant companion for many. Parents held their children tighter. Curfews were self-imposed. The sight of a red sweater in a store could trigger a wave of unease. The authorities tried to calm the public. They issued statements, denials. They said it was mass hysteria, a modern-day bogeyman. But the sightings continued. Too many, too consistent in their eerie details. The children in red never spoke. They never interacted, they just watched. Their presence was a cold reminder, a silent accusation, of what was lost, of what might be lurking. The fear was palpable. It hung in the air like a winter fog. The red sweaters became a focal point for a deeper, unacknowledged terror. The terror of the unknown. The terror of what might be hidden just beneath the surface of reality. The terror that what you see, what you reflect, might not be you at all. The children in red were the harbingers, the first wave, and people began to wonder, what would come next? What happened to the original children who wore those sweaters, and who or what was looking out from their eyes now? Section 9. The Labyrinth's End. Camp Reflect's final, awful secret. Detective Miles Haynes was a man haunted by unsolved cases. The stories of the children in red snagged his attention. He saw a pattern, a connection to older, colder cases, missing children from decades past. He started digging, old files, forgotten testimonies. He found the name Ronald Pierce. He found the location of Camp Reflect, long abandoned, rotting in the deep woods. Haynes wasn't a man to believe in ghosts, but the evidence was piling up. Something terrible had happened there, something that was still echoing. His investigation led him to a strange hand-drawn map, found pressed within the pages of Pierce's journal. It wasn't a map of the campgrounds, not exactly, it was a spiral, leading inwards, to a point marked with a single cryptic symbol, a fractured mirror. Haynes felt a chill. He knew he had to go there. He had to see for himself. He didn't tell many people where he was going, just a trusted colleague. "If I'm not back in 48 hours, he'd said, send everyone." He drove towards the forgotten camp, towards the heart of the spiral. The FBI raid on Camp Reflect happened 2 days later, acting on Haynes's information and his silence. They found the camp just as described, decaying, eerie, silent. They followed the layout from Pierce's notes. They found the main lodge, And in the hidden basement, they found the mirror rooms, cold, pristine, as if waiting. But Detective Haynes was gone, vanished, like Connor, like Eli Danner all those years ago. His car was there, his notes, but no Haynes. The final chilling realization began to dawn on the agents exploring those rooms. The mirrors. They weren't just glass and silver, they felt alive. They hummed with a faint energy. Some agents reported seeing movements in their peripheral vision, reflections that didn't quite match. One young agent swore he saw Haynes, deep in a mirror, not his reflection, Haynes himself, trapped, beckoning, then gone. They left Camp Reflect with more questions than answers, and a deep, unsettling fear. The mirrors were not passive, they were waiting, they remembered, and they were always, always watching. What you see is not always what is there. Sometimes what you see is waiting to take your place.